We're ready to go. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's sprint review for Comet Sprint 26 and Shoreline Sprint 28. This is the second of 4 sprints for this fall Surfliner work cycle. And as usual, I want to invite Tamsin to take over to talk about our high-level goals for the sprint and all the work that was completed. And then hopefully we can wrap this up before the national cell phone test happens. But if not, maybe mute your phones. Anyway, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Tamsin.
Great. Do we see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, hi. This was a really productive sprint. And our main focus during this time has still been on solidifying the bulk ingest through CSV behavior, and putting that through its paces. Last sprint, we demoed a whole bunch of sort of creature comforts around that and UI improvements. This sprint, we sort of continued working on things like that, but also expanded the scope a bit to work on the sort of end-to-end Shoreline publish work. So particularly Alex and Matt were working on that. And also on ingesting collections as part of the same CSVs that we ingest the objects with, so that you can import a collection and show the whole structure. The other thing that we were very interested in is starting to iron out details about how we'll manage file sets and file use relationships in realistic ingest settings. So if you have objects that have many files and maybe file sets with files with different file uses in them, then we want to have the UI behavior ironed out for that. So I don't want to say that we have all the pieces of that done, but I'm going to show you a few things that came through this sprint. One really big thing that happened during this sprint is that we upgraded the base Hyrax engine that Comet is based on, to take advantage of all the work that happened between the software services at scientist.com team and the Princeton team and ourselves during the community sprints. And there's actually a whole bunch of things that improved as part of that, but I'm going to show us 2 of them right now. The first of those is that if I have an object with many file sets, we have, and the duplicate buttons are my fault. Those will be gone shortly. But if I have an object with many file sets, then I now have the ability to work with a file manager that allows me to do things like order them and change which ones are the thumbnail and the representative media for the object, which should change like what gets displayed. This object doesn't, not that compelling because the object doesn't have a preview attached to it. But when the IIIF viewer is here, the representative media is the file that's displaying is the representative media is the file that's displaying in that, and the thumbnail can be a different object. And again, I can order the files. So if I have like an object that contains that contain an object that represents a book that has pages that should be ordered, then I can manage the order for those using this page. I think, Gabriella, that's the very beginning of the sort of epic structure and relationship management ticket, and I'd love for us to take this moment to come back and talk about requirements for the rest of the relationship management behavior. It may be that we can use some of the code that went into this upstream to our advantage for managing complex component relationships and other needs that are similar. Another thing that happened on the file management front is that we are now, and I don't think I have do we have an object? Gabriella, do you know an object that might have oh, here might be one. Never mind. Yeah, this one's gonna, oh, this looks like it doesn't actually have any files attached. This is one of
You
those.
should be able to, well, are you in Santa Barbara's?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
some of
won't
these
find my stuff in there.
some of these objects are uploaded using a sort of like faulty CSV that led to an error state. But if I have an object that has if I have a file set that has multiple files inside it with different file uses, we're now displaying all of those. So in the case of like, I've ingested a geospatial object that has a service file as well as a preservation file, then I should be able to here see those listed and download them individually. So that's convenient. I think we have some more work to do on managing and editing those kinds of relationships going forward, but we've gotten a little bit better at this. Another thing that we worked on that's similar is that these tabs are about to change rather substantially, but I think we're just a little bit away from that being merged, so we're not demoing that today. Okay, so that brings me back to the ingest behavior. So if I have an importer, I'm going to make a new importer that has an importer for objects and collections. I'm going to put it through Airphotos digitization. I'm going to go grab this collection relationships CSV. And before we actually import it, I want to look at that collection relationship CSV. Sorry if this is kind of small, but the gist here is I've got 3 collections in this file in the CSV, and I've got several objects which are meant to be in different of those collections. Collection 1, collection 2, collection 3. These can all be in any order. They don't need to be grouped together. And let's upload that again with those changes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create and validate that importer with that CSV. And we just discovered that the merge for the Hyrax upgrade that I mentioned is going to cause a minor hiccup here. But I'll explain to you what's going on and what is almost happening. I think we're like a 1 line of code change away from this demo working. So I'm going to show it to you anyway and tell you about how it works. So, so my objects all here got created. And I also have created some, or should have created some collection objects that are related to those. Um, we do end up with erroring behavior on this, and the error that's here is because of the Hyrax upgrade that got merged yesterday. But we think that the fix for this is very fast. This is just a case of a test that needs to be written so that we can test for this regression going forward. But what should happen is that I will have created these three collections: collection 1, collection 2, collection 3. I will have created these objects, which we can see are to be members of those collections. And then uh, once all of those initial objects get created, we're running some background jobs that will create the relationships between them. So we should see basically as soon as this collection with this name gets created, we should see. Oh, and I actually need to like create these. So as soon as this object gets created, or the collections and objects all get created, we should see it get added to a collection. Again, that's not going to happen right here for us at this exact moment. But the work that happened here to make it to this point is really substantial. And the effect is that when we're adding objects and collections and building complex relationships in a CSV, we should expect all that behavior to work. I would also like to point out that this is another place where the concept of the source identifier for these objects really matters, because not only can I do this for collections and objects that are being uploaded in the same CSV, but because these source identifiers are global, if I have these references in different CSVs, I can upload them independently and create complex relationships between objects and collections that that share that that refer to each other using identifiers that don't yet, uh, even though there's no internal ID yet. So if I'm doing a large scale ingest, I can put some of the collections in one CSV and some of the objects in another CSV and ingest them separately and have the relationships resolve themselves after the fact, when I've uploaded all those CSVs appropriately. So that's a case where like the relationships between the source identifiers and their global state really sort of shines. Like I can do a whole bunch of prior work to get these objects all set up in CSV and then import them separately. Okay, so that's collections. I do want to point out a couple of other, I guess, Gabriella, this is the clickable behavior, right? That you were asking me to point out, like these,
Mhm.
the
Oh,
tabbing, the like highlighting of the tabbing is still not working, but but I can actually see the different entries. And then we also made a couple of other like smallish UI changes to this. One of those is, oh, sorry, I don't want to edit this importer. One of those is that we've normalized the language. So this used to, I think, just say identifier and then display the source identifier. So we're going through this UI and making sure that the labels for things are consistent throughout. The source identifier here should be the source identifier here, and a few other UI related changes got merged through this sprint. I now want to hand off screen share to Alex, who's going to show us what we did on the shoreline side. Or I guess the behavioral changes are sort of split between the Comet and shoreline side, but the demo that we want to do is what how all of the changes impact shoreline ingest end to end.
Yeah, so yes, a lot of this was already in place. It just wasn't quite polished, and then now everything is kind of coming together. One minor qualification about the collection stuff. If you ingest a CSV with a collection and objects that are meant to be added to that collection, currently they aren't added immediately. There's a limitation in bulk recs, or it's just a case of over caution where it can't confirm that the collection is created first, or that all the objects are created before the background job runs. So currently it just waits 5 minutes after the ingest, then adds objects to collections. Obviously that's not ideal, and we'll be looking at ways to improve that, but it is confusing at first. You ingest it and then you don't see the collection relationships established, and then all of a sudden later that they're there.
Thanks, Alex. I'm sure we can utilize the job retry back off more effectively than that.
There are plenty of ways we can kind of work around that, but it is currently what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to run a little ingest on a empty instance of Comet just to make sure that everything is tidy. So here's another importer. So we are going to ingest into the Shoreline project, and a little sample CSV. So like last time, the collection itself isn't going to create properly because of that bug, but we're not worried about that right now. What we're looking at is how geospatial objects are ingested into Comet and then via Comet ingested into Shoreline. So let's see, once we have an object, okay, here's one. We're just going to publish one for now. And before I do this, let me just double check and make sure there's nothing in our Shoreline. Okay, good. Here's an empty instance of Shoreline. So now we approve this. Once you approve it, it begins the publish workflow. So it is a message is sent through our message queue that Shoreline picks up on. That message that includes a link that it uses to fetch the metadata and the actual shapefile that we're ingesting, so that Shoreline can then publish it to GeoServer and publish it to its own Solar instance. So hopefully that gave it long enough. There we go. So now we search. Here's our object in Shoreline. You can see the little overlay being fetched from GeoServer. You can download the derivative. And then suppose a mistake was made in Comet and you want to unpublish it. you can do that as well. Let's see, last time I think I tried to unpublish it too fast and it got confused. So I think it's been long enough that if I unpublish it now, it will remove it from Shoreline. So it sends another message through our messaging queue. Shoreline reads that, deletes it from GeoServer, and then deletes it from the Solar index. Perfect. That's not the error you're going to see in production, but that is what it looks like in development. No results found. So now there is nothing in Shoreline again. So that's the kind of the Comet to Shoreline pipeline that we've finally got all ironed out.
Alex, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remind me that if you published to Shoreline in the Comet object view, would it have a link saying it's published out to Shoreline?
It will eventually. I forget
Okay.
if we got that all taken care of. And now I don't know how to reapprove an object in Comet once it's been unpublished.
There's an open ticket for reapproving, and I think we
Okay.
have a Alex. I think we have a conversation to have about the best way to handle that. Like, I think the unpublished may need refinement to make that make sense.
Okay.
But yeah, I can jump in briefly about the links.
It does. Okay. Okay. Well, sorry. I can just say it does provide a discovery link. Currently, the link is incorrect.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. So if I make this, oh yeah, there we go. Okay. So similarly to so I have a bunch of objects here in test collection 1. I'm going to publish that collection. This publish collection button, I think we need to, Gabriella, I think we need to have a conversation about the labels for all the various publication buttons now that we're supporting multiple platforms. But this publish collection button here is intended to publish to OAI. So I'm going to publish this collection.
Your screen
What's
share
that?
isn't working for me. I'm not sure if it's not working for anyone else.
Oh, it thinks that
It's black for me.
I'm going to try again. Thank you for. Is that better?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I these are a whole bunch of objects in a collection. I'm going to go ahead and publish that collection to the OAI endpoint. And I'm going to grab a couple of these objects. It just took a second to reload. Yeah. So we can see that there are links for where these objects got published to. But as so I should be able to. That wasn't very compelling. I should be able to click through on these to get to the OAI, the public OAI record for this object, or to the geospatial record. The geospatial record, I'm not entirely sure how we ended up with this state, Alex, but the geospatial record currently points to Superskunk.
Yeah, I was gonna say for somehow when you
And
publish a Shoreline object, it links to the metadata authority.
yeah,
Rather
and I
than the
think that
actual discovery.
we need to figure that out. But yeah, the basic idea is that whenever an object is published to probably multiple front ends, so the idea is that there might be the OAI endpoint, there might be the generic daylight front end, there might be sort of content specific front ends like Shoreline, and that all of those links would be available to the library staff from here, so that you can go and see where this object is public. And I think that's maybe all that we have demo-wise today. Our upcoming sprint includes some more ingest stuff, and particularly, I think we're still working on some of that complex file relationship behavior. There's a ticket open about making sure that these uh, sort of object previews show up for the right kinds of file uses. So right now, this only applies to files that are the original file, but in actuality, we have a whole taxonomy of file uses that we want to be able to uh, choose from appropriately across object types. So we're working on that, and I think that's sort of the shape of the upcoming sprint. I'm sure that uh, we'll do a lot of. I think now that we're getting closer on the general idea of large scale CSV ingest, we should be getting sort of more fragmented about what little details we're picking off. The goal of the work cycle is still to put both campuses in a place where there's a real opportunity to ingest data into the system and see a benefit from it. Gabriella, did you have anything you wanted to add by way of closing?
I don't, but I kind of have a question, maybe for our stakeholders. If you could go back to the file manager button, that view, I was curious as to whether the objects there are ever going to show a thumbnail of, I know not all collections are going to be image based. Let's see if you could find one.
Oh, I didn't show the embargo behavior. We should probably
Oh,
take a second to do that.
you should.
But yeah, so is the question.
So if I'm going to use File Manager to arrange my, let's just say an object, and I have multiple images, I'm not going to remember the ARC name, or I'm not going to necessarily know the file name of the objects. And that's what I saw mainly when you were showing File Manager with these generic thumbnails.
Hang on. Let me get a file manager up so that I'm sure I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because I'm a little confused. I'm gonna upload a
Don't
bunch
be
of files to it,
confused.
and we'll just name this test again because we're always doing that. Okay, so I got a couple of file sets here for the shape file and the image. So
there. See those generic thumbnails there?
Oh, these ones here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, yeah, I would assume that we'll be able to show the generated thumbnails for these. I'm not entirely. We might need to look at what's going on here. But yeah, I mean, the idea here is sort of like I might have a file set that's the shape file and a file set that's just a supplementary file that's just meant to be the display thumbnail for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I should be able to edit those and and I'm not like I should Oh, there's the beeps. I should be able to edit those and change which ones are the representative media for the object and which one is the thumbnail, etc. And I think maybe we should wrap here because, oh my goodness.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think so.
And the phones are screaming.
Do you want to stop the recording, then we can have people ask questions if they have any?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to stop now.
But